Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again. Believe in a power greater than what you are going through. When you don't know what to do, keep breathing.
Broadcasting from Huntington Beach, California, a big LA welcome to all our listeners out there in Radio Land. I am Dave Nassani on the Caregiver Dave radio show, coming to you live globally from the syndicated All Positive Talk Radio Network, HealthyLife.net, broadcasting in all 50 states and 135 countries. And we have an exciting show planned for you today. Normally, my co-host Adrienne Gruberg from the Caregiver Space from Manhattan is here, but not today. She's at the Broadway musical watching something, and God bless her, she needs a day off. So have fun, Adrienne. But today's guest, A&E Television Star MonaLisa Johnson, 60 days in jail, undercover to help reform the prison system, a caregiver to the incarcerated. She will talk about what it is to be a caregiver to prisoners of hope, a different kind of caregiver and a different kind of show. MonaLisa experienced losing her daughter to the system of incarceration, where she served 6 years on a 10-year mandatory minimum sentence. That's her daughter. From that experience, she went to jail for 60 days, MonaLisa, undercover, to learn more about what her daughter was experiencing. Thereafter created an awareness movement to restore empathy and rebuild the family unit. She is still currently caring for her 26-year-old daughter after returning from 6 years of prison. Over these last 2 years, it has been a joyous and painful experience all in one, if you can imagine that. I think caregivers can relate to that. And we're proud to be voted, by the way, #1 caregiver podcast of the top 50 on Player FM, as well as the top 6 best podcasts on caring.com, as well as #3 podcast out of the thousands of caregiver podcasts on FeedSpot. And if you go right now to caregiverdave.com and click on the free download tab, you will get some free gifts for you. Don't ever let free gifts go unclaimed. That's what my dad always used to say, and I think he's right. But hey, before I introduce MonaLisa, I want to take this opportunity to thank our last guest, Carletta Cole. And you can watch or listen to that interview and all our interviews on healthylife.net and many of our other great interviews on our membership website, caregiverdave.com. All right, enough of that. MonaLisa, let me just sing that. MonaLisa, MonaLisa, men have named you. We're so honored to be interviewing a star like you today. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you so much. That was a beautiful rendition. Do it again, Sam.
You're so like the lady with the mystic smile.
Aww.
And I can go on and on, but this is your show. I like to ask my guests to take a minute or two and just tell us, who the heck is MonaLisa Johnson and why was she put on this earth? How's that for an opening question?
Wow, that was no prep needed, right? They say stay ready, don't get ready, right? I think that, I'm a person who I firmly believe was created for a purpose. I don't think that I was just that person that was just created to exist and to just go through life like, most people who have, not a lot of things that they need to do or accomplish, but maybe just do the basics of working, raising a family, things like that. I think I was created for something a little different. I was built and made, I think, to withstand some massive trials and tribulations.
You think?
I think that, I am a woman of God, and I do believe, that there are multiple ways to get to God. And I also believe that Jesus Christ is Lord. So in all of
Amen.
that, I think that, God anointed me, if you will, or chose me, if you will, to be a person who would care for those who were downtrodden and those who were less than and would be looked at, as castaways. So I think it was just me, that was chosen for that. I used to be a very strong person, and then I went through, bits and moments where life kind of felt like it was overtaking me, and I fell apart, and, I found myself, having to pull myself up by my bootstraps and find my own healing. So I've had a lot of, healing journeys. I've brought healing to other people. And I just think as a whole, I'm a good person. I'm a good person.
And you
I
look like
can.
a strong person. I mean, you're a force to be reckoned with. I mean, we have video too. For those of you who don't see the video, I'm sorry, but there's an aura. There's almost a halo on her because of the way the light is in the room she is in,
Yeah.
and those of you who have video can see that. But she's an amazing strong woman. I mean, I just came from Carnegie Hall where I spent the weekend with Martha Stewart. We spoke on the same stage, Carnegie Hall, and she told about her little joint in jail, or as she puts it, Yale, because it
Oh,
just sounds better and it made her feel better going to Yale for
okay.
5 months instead of jail. And
That
she
sounds
was
good.
strong when she went in, and she's stronger when she came out, and she's even more famous. And you're right in her shoes, even better, because you have done the same journey, and you've accomplished a lot through what you're doing. And we just can't wait to have you tell us all about it.
Well,
So there.
if I get my own line like Martha Stewart, then I'll be calling myself
You
Mona
have
Martha.
no idea what Jesus has in store for you, young lady,
Amen to that.
because I guarantee you, if you can imagine it, it ain't big enough. So just hang in there,
That's a fact.
and you will let him show you who you are in Christ, because you are a force to be reckoned with, and you
Thank
ain't
you.
seen nothing yet. So let's
I
talk
receive
about
it.
how did the incarceration happen? I mean, that's a story in and of itself. Go ahead.
Well, my daughter was actually she was an early graduate from high school. She graduated at the age of 16 years old through a gifted program. And despite my, desire not to do it, I still allowed her to go away to college. She didn't go away the first year or even the second year, but towards the end of the second year, at the last moment, I decided I'm going to let you go ahead and live on campus. So she was into her second, like 2.5 years into her college journey when I decided to let her live on campus. And it was at that point that she got involved with all kinds of different people. I mean, when our kids go away to college, let's face it, they're going to meet people. They're going to experience things that, we may or may not have any control over. But the reality is they will experience. In that experience, she found a drug addiction to a drug called Molly. It's not the typical pills like most of the kids are doing. It's the powder, the purest form of it that some of the kids who have a little bit larger budgets or stipends from their parents usually typically get involved in. And
Rich kids.
yeah, I didn't want to say it that way because I wouldn't have called her a rich kid. She was just a little too
No, but she was hanging
overprivileged.
out with the rich kids.
There you go. Right. And so, it was costing her about $150 every 2 days to get high.
Wow.
And before she knew it, she got addicted to this drug. And then she found herself hanging with people who did whatever they had to do to get the drug. And she was thereby entangled in being an accomplice.
Sounds like a
So
Patty Hearst story.
that's what it is, right? That's exactly what it is. I forgot about Patty Hearst. Yeah, but she got caught up, she got caught up with the wrong crowd. And I'm not saying that she wasn't guilty because without a stretch of the imagination, she was absolutely guilty of her charge. She was thereby sentenced with 10 years as a mandatory minimum in the state of Georgia. And in that state, that means that you're supposed to serve 10 years to the door with no good behavior, no way to get out early. So that was a blow to us, to say the least. It was her first time offending anything ever in life. She didn't even get in trouble in school. So for this was a complete blow against the family, a blow to me as a mother, just a blow to her in general. And we do believe she was over sentenced. So that was kind of her journey.
Hmm. Wow. So how did you deal with the what did I do wrong, the guilt, and all the things that a parent goes through when their kid either goes to jail or is on drugs or gets pregnant early? I mean, it's got to be my fault. How did I screw up? I mean, did you go through any of that?
Absolutely. That was the very first question when I got the call. And she says, "Mom, I'm in jail." All I could say was, what did I do wrong? I didn't even say, "Are you okay? What did you do?" All I could think about is, what did I do wrong? And I beat myself up over that for years because I was like, why was that the first thought that I had? Versus I thought of, well, what happened? Are you hurt? Are you okay? Or, I mean, those were
Mm,
secondary thoughts. So the
interesting.
reality to my, to me is that as a caregiver, you want to provide and protect your children.
Hmm.
So when they're in a position where you can't fix it or anything like that, you're going to automatically go into a state of guilt and shame and,
Yeah.
defense and anything else that you can. And how I dealt with it was awful the first 2 years. I
Mm.
stayed in hiding. I didn't tell a soul. I pretended like nothing was happening.
You were going through
Only
all the stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining. How can I get out of this? Depression. And it took you a while to get to acceptance, didn't it?
It did. It did. When I got to acceptance was when I realized that God had a calling on my life. That's when I realized I could no
Mm.
longer sit in a seat of pity or in a oh woe's me or a victim mentality, but that I had to rise up as a warrior somehow to not only heal myself and pull myself through, but to be strong enough to be there for my daughter.
Yeah, it gives that scripture a whole new meaning that all things work together for good to them that serve him and are called according to his purpose. If you had to do it all over again, what would you have done differently, or would you have done nothing differently because this is the cards you were dealt, and this is how you were able to grow and become the person? Which way are you going on that?
Can I say both? Because honestly,
Sure.
I know after I went through all of the woulda, shoulda, coulda, then I ended up right where you said, this is her life. This is what had to happen as a part of her life. But before I came to that acceptance and that understanding, I would have never allowed her to graduate as early as I did. I would have not allowed her to start college as early as I did. I wouldn't have put so much pressure on her to use the wisdom that was given to her to grow up so fast.
Well, she must have been
I
very bright for you to push her along like that.
Yeah, but I pushed too hard. I pushed way too hard. Like I pushed so hard that I would say things like, "There's nothing that's allowed in this house other than straight A's," because my dad did the same thing to me.
Which
You
you
brought
got,
home a B
right?
in our house, and oh
Uh-huh.
yeah, trust me, I did. Trust me. You brought a B home in our house, and all hell was going to break loose. I mean, you're going to have to
Oh,
do some massive explaining. You know what I mean?
yeah, I know what you mean.
And
So, so
yeah.
we have something in common. I've told you this before, and not everybody knows it, but I have a grandson who is incarcerated. He's 19 or 20 now, and he's autistic, high functioning, Asperger's. Started hanging around with the wrong kids at 14 and 15, breaking into garages, stealing stuff, started doing drugs, stealing other things. One time he took a family hostage with his two loser friends, and
Oh wow.
the helicopters were circling the house, and he was screaming out to the police, "Leave us alone! We have guns in here. We'll kill them all if you don't go." I mean, crazy stuff. They had no guns. And in the state of Washington, when they finally got him out and arraigned and all that stuff, a little slap on the wrist, and they went home again. I mean, just don't understand the criminal justice system. In your case, over punishing, and in his case, under punishing the small things that will lead to larger things. And so on his last thing, he got out of jail for a probation violation, and friends came by, decided to get high, get drunk, stole a car, went into this residential neighborhood, speeding, killed a teenager, and now he's serving 10 to 15 for manslaughter. And I get letters from him. "Hey, Grandpa, I'm doing good. I'm learning this, and I'm cooking now. I'm sewing my clothes, and I'm getting my degree." And you hear about things in prison that you get more drugs in prison than out of prison. And I hope everything he's saying is true, but I just don't know. Your daughter also wrote you letters, right?
She wrote me a ton of letters. In the beginning, the letters that she wrote me were quite disturbing because she told me, all of the things that happened there that were just mind blowing. I couldn't believe half of the things that she told me, from the mental abuse to the physical abuse to just all kinds of things that went on in her prison.
I'm surprised that they let that letter go through, because I can't even send certain things. The letters are opened up and they're read and stuff, and I'm assuming that they also read the letters going out, and so that one must have miraculously gotten through.
Well, they can't legally read the mail going out. They
Oh,
can read it
really?
coming in because they're a ward of the state. and the address has to be to the prison in care of that person. So technically speaking, they can open your mail as it comes in, but
I
they can't
see.
open it going out.
I see.
Yeah.
So, what did you learn from these letters? And I guess she was making some accusations about heroin in the prison, and or maybe that was when you were in there. I'm not sure.
That was when I was
Mixing
in.
up
I
my
saw that as
stories.
well.
Yeah,
It's okay. It's okay. It's
we don't want
okay.
to get ahead of ourselves.
She did tell me though, in the male prison, that's where you can get the drugs, that the women don't stick together. The men stick together a lot easier and a lot faster than the women. The women tattletale too much, so you couldn't get things like cell phones in and drugs and stuff like that. That is a rumor for women's prisons.
So, go on with your story. How did it progress, and how did you eventually, get contacted by A&E, and how did she get out early, and all of that stuff?
So after my 2 years of sulking, I realized that I needed to get some help. So the first thing I did was I went to get some therapy. And in the therapy, I realized that I was suffering from guilt and shame and going through the whole grief cycle, just as you said. And that fascinated me to the point where I felt like, wow, I'm starting to come out on the other side of this. I need to share with people how to come out just like I did, because this felt miraculous to me. It almost felt like I had been so dark and deep and such in a dark place for so long, so depressed, so sad, so victimized, that finally I was seeing the light. Finally I was starting to feel, better about life, and I was just starting to see better things. So I immediately started writing blogs about the grief process and about how you can come out of it. Still not saying anything about the prison side of thing. And then somebody called me out. And when they called me out, they said, you have to talk about what's going on because you can help other people. And I started doing that. And as a part of doing that, I decided to open up an organization called Parents with Incarcerated Children, because I started to learn multiple things along the way. Not just how to get over the guilt and shame, but I also learned about who to tell my story to and when to tell my story, because
Mm.
everybody can't handle the truth. So you need to know when.
Yeah. Now, you looked for an organization or a group, support group, but you couldn't find one.
I couldn't.
That's why
There
you
was
kind of
nobody.
started one?
There was nobody out there, supporting anybody who had a loved one incarcerated. If anything, it was more like watching TV to see what was going on in the jails and prisons and hoping you could
Mm.
figure it out from there.
Wow, that's amazing. So, how did you get involved in this, and why did A&E contact you, and how did they hear about it? I guess you were doing a lot of interviews, huh?
I was doing a great amount of interviews. I was also starting to post a lot of videos on social media, about my enlightenments, if you would. And so then I started getting accused by all of the followers. I'd say a lot of them started to accuse me of not really knowing what life in jail or prison was like, because how
Hmm.
would a woman of my that you be able to figure that out? They had done research on me, knew that I was an entrepreneur, owned my own business. I'm
Hmm.
a TV producer.
You were
Some
like
of the
Martha
clients,
Stewart.
right? Like some of the clients that I had, they're like, yeah, right. What do you
Yeah.
know about prison and jail? And so they called me out and they said point blank, you should just get up off your high horse and stop talking to us until you really know our pain, because you had the money to hire a lawyer. We didn't.
Mm.
They started running all these
Yeah.
things down, and they were right. They were right. So I kind of ghosted a little bit from the pages for a while, back into my shell and started saying, God, help me. How am I
Mm.
supposed to get through to these people? And then out the blue sky in my DM comes A&E, and they offer me, at that point, to have a conversation with them about a TV show that they're working on that allows people to go inside and see what things are like. And that was all they said.
Well, how many views were you getting on these videos?
Couple of hundred. It wasn't like thousands and thousands and thousands,
Really?
because people were too ashamed and too embarrassed to even follow the page, because they were
Yeah.
afraid they'd be found
Branded.
out. Hmm.
So A&E just happened to come across this video that wasn't really well watched, a couple hundred people instead of 100 million, and they contacted you and they asked you what?
They said, would you be interested in, this is on the phone now, we're having a
Hmm.
conversation. Would you be interested in going to jail undercover for 6 to 9 months? 6 to 9 months, in order to to be a part of a experiment where we see how people who are, who are brought into this situation act, live, and want to, be like. And then would you also help us to uncover some of the things that are going on in this jail? And I just said, well, no, and no.
They said
I did,
6 months, huh?
yeah, 6 to 9 months at first.
Oh, 6 to 9 months. I can't even imagine. I mean, I'm 65 years old, and I always think about, I watch cops a lot on the television, and I see, how they grab you and they throw your shoulder behind your back and throw you down on the floor. I said, my God, if anyone did that to me, I would be gone. This body has become so fragile, and your back and your knees and your ankle. And I said,
Yeah.
I could not survive a day in prison. I can't even imagine that happening to anybody, let alone a beautiful woman like you. And I'm sure you
Oh,
were
thank
much
you.
younger than me. But let's hold that thought right there, because we're going to take a break, and then we'll find out what happened next. So we'll be right back. Dave Nasani, the Caregiver's Caregiver, has just released his 6th book entitled It's My Life Too, Thrive to Stay Alive as a Caregiver. It was specifically written for caregivers who know they should be putting their needs first, but just don't know how. Dave is the sole caregiver to his wife, Charlene, since 1996. He knows firsthand what caregivers are going through, because he is one. He now speaks all across the country, offering caregivers his amazing caregiver support package. Even the airlines tell us that in the event of an emergency, to put your oxygen mask on first, before you help your child with their mask. They know that those who don't heed their advice often black out, thus becoming unable to help either themselves or their child. And caregivers are exactly the same way. It's My Life Too, Thrive and Stay Alive as a Caregiver will help caregivers who are neglecting their sleep, diet, and social life, and learn to put their needs first. Pick up your copy today, or buy one for your special caregiver, on sale everywhere, and at caregiverdave.com. And we're back on the Caregiver Dave Show, and we are with our wonderful guest, A&E star MonaLisa Johnson. I just can't say it. I have to sing it. And I'm Caregiver Dave. I'm Dave Nasani. And we're talking about her amazing story. She did 60 days, hard time, undercover. You didn't get any privileges, did you? I mean, they didn't
Oh,
give you a nice, cushy Tempur-Pedic mattress, and you
oh
didn't you
God.
didn't get the ceramic toilet with the bidet on it.
Oh no. I bet Martha Stewart got it though.
I don't know. I should have asked her that. I forgot to ask her that.
Right.
But
No. I got a steel
I think
toilet.
they were so busy trying to make an example out of her. Maybe she did not get it. I don't know.
Yeah, I get that totally.
She
But
she got she got the short end of the stick on that one. But go
yeah,
on.
I don't want to
What
water
you-
down, other people's time in prison and jail. That was not quote
Yeah,
unquote
jail is
hard
jail. Even if you
time.
call it Yale, it's still jail.
Right. I wouldn't say it was hard time, compared to others, but for me it was a hard time because I had never done anything like that. I had no special privileges. Nobody on the staff knew I was in there. None of the inmates, and I had to live just like any other inmate on a steel bed with a mattress that was an inch and a half,
I saw
inch and a
some
half.
pictures on your website, and you really looked like you belonged there. I mean,
Ah,
you played
thank
the
you.
part. You look like a
I
bad
had my
girl.
braids. I had my
Yeah.
braids.
And so
They give me
when
powers. That's what I tell everybody.
so right away you go in there and you hear that okay, you got to pick a group, because everybody's against each other. At least on the men's side. Not sure how it is on the women's side, but I'm assuming they've got a Hispanic group and a black group and Puerto Rican group or whatever. How did you find your place? And did some people reach out to help you? And did some people reach out to assault you?
You're
All of
absolutely
the above, huh?
Absolutely, all of the above. That's why life is so messed up and so chaotic on the inside. But um, it was difficult to make choices because I am a multicultural woman. My mother's Italian and my father's African American, and it was very difficult to walk in and make a decision because I've never felt like I had to make that decision on who I wanted to be around. So that was number one. They first, they do kind of separate out and segregate out based on race, and then sometimes culture and sometimes, gangs. So,
Yeah. Which one did you choose?
to be honest with you, I didn't make a choice. I kind of decided to float.
Mm.
I became a floater,
You were a
and
free agent.
I was a free agent, and I felt like people had to tell me what they wanted, and I would kind of figure it out from there. But what happened to me the first 3 days I was there was really unnerving because they give you a jumpsuit, and that jumpsuit was like
It,
5 sizes too big for
I was
me.
going to say it
Okay.
fits perfectly, right?
Nah, it's so big, like three of us could get into it, okay? And
Extra,
so,
extra, extra large. One size fits all.
right. And this had a big gaping hole in the crotch area too, so that was even more of an exciting, wonderful field day I had. So I decided to use some commissary money to buy myself some sweatpants and a sweatshirt, which, by the way, on the outside is only about $4 or $5 each, and they charged me $35 for sweatpants
Wow.
and $35 for the sweatshirt. Within 3 days of getting that and having it in my cell, I went to sleep one night. I woke up and they were all my clothes were gone.
How'd they get them?
I must have slept too hard.
You had a cellmate or no?
I had two bunkies, and these were
Oh, see,
open dorm cells. So we were
it was
sitting,
an
kind of
inside
out.
job.
It was definitely an inside job. And I found out about maybe 2 or 3 weeks later that there was a pod boss there. And the pod boss wanted to make sure that because she was the oldest one there, and it looked like I probably would be next in line as far as age. She wanted to make sure that none of the girls would get the strange idea to kind of follow me or follow my lead. So she set the tone to make sure that I knew that there was a boss inside.
Boss lady. Wow.
Yeah, that was tough.
So,
$35. I only had $70 in my commissary account for the whole stay. So
wow.
I was so
So,
upset. I wanted to fight.
so did you ever get beat up?
I got close about 2 or 3 times, not necessarily getting beat up, but I would say about to go into a massive brawl. There was a 19-year-old girl in there who just kept rubbing me the wrong way, and
Mm.
she was a complete bully, and she had been in and out for murder, and she, you know, was never able to be pinned, or when she would be pinned, she'd only do 6, 7 months, and somebody
Mm.
had money on the outside, they'd always get her out. But she was a mean, hateful bullier, and
Was she
definitely looking
big?
to be.
Bigger than you?
No, no, but she was
Just a
strong.
big mouth.
No, no, she was strong.
Mm.
She put hands on you very quickly. Like we got into a physical little brawl, but it wasn't a total fight because they got in and broke it up before the chance got there. But I didn't want to. I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to be a fighter. I just wanted to,
Yeah.
figure out what was going on the
Do a
inside.
lot of women pump iron in there?
There's no iron to pump because in jails there's no such thing as gyms and stuff like that. They send you to this little crazy thing called a basketball room, which is a joke. There's nothing to do in jail. You stay in your cells all day long, 24
Well,
hours a day, 7 days a week.
where's all the iron that we see on television? The guys are pumping and getting bigger and
That's in
starting.
prison.
That's in
That's in
prison.
prison.
So you weren't
Yes.
in prison, you were in jail.
Right.
Like
Jails are
county
different.
county jail?
I was in county jail, yeah. It's a state
Uh,
operated, yeah.
yeah,
But
Georgia
prison
isn't
is
any
where you,
place you want to go to jail in the
yeah, I
South.
was in Indiana on the show. I was in Indiana.
Oh,
My
do they have
daughter
a
was in
chain gang
Georgia.
over there?
I don't know. I didn't happen to see anything like that, but I did see that there were a lot of girls in there who were a part of a gang on the outside, the Bloods and the Crips.
Really?
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see how rough it was in there. I know it was rough, but
It was
um,
awful.
you give me the chills here. I don't know. Let's
It
take
was
another break.
awful. Yeah.
Save that thought. We'll take another break. We'll be right back.
One Arm, One Leg, 100 Words, Overcoming Unbelievable Hardships is about Charlene, a stroke survivor. Back in 1996, Charlene was a healthy, normal, very active 52-year-old woman whose amazing talents resemble that of both a Martha Stewart and a Wonder Woman. But all that changed when she suffered a massive stroke that left her severely speech impaired and paralyzed on the right side. Who am I? My name is David. I've had the privilege of being Charlene's husband since 1975. We had a wonderful, fairy tale, storybook-like courtship that culminated in our marriage a year later. Charlene had just come out of a marriage where after 10 years, she received 2 black eyes and a broken nose by her former husband, when he came home high on speed. Charlene believed in no second chances of any kind for abuse, so she left. Finding herself all alone in the world with her 5 and 10-year-old daughters Cynthia Lorraine and Deborah Lynn, she started raising them by herself for the next 2 years. Then fate brought us all together. After falling in love with Charlene, Cindy, and Debbie, our love then produced Rebecca Elizabeth. We had a wonderful, normal life for the next 20 years. But today, things are very different for everyone. How about the reaction of 9-time Grammy and Dove Award recipient, the godfather of contemporary gospel Christian music, Andre Crouch? Charlene just won't let the promises of God go, and she has not let her circumstances get in the way of her faith. She's not just a survivor, she's more than a conqueror, as the Bible states. You'll be encouraged by her testimony, regardless of what you're going through. Available everywhere.
And we're back with MonaLisa Johnson, and I'm Dave Nasani on the Caregiver Dave Show. So let's move on here. Excuse me. What was it like to be in for 60 days? I mean, did everybody know that you were getting out in 60 days and 40 days and 30 days, or did they think you were in for years? What did they know about you, and what did you tell them you were in for? Because I know they ask, right?
Oh, absolutely. You get interrogated the minute you walk in the door. We had a cover story. All of us had cover stories. You were told when you first came into the jail that you had an option to sign a waiver and be a part of a brand new pod that was just built, called First Timers. They were filming a documentary. They didn't say, what station or anything like that. They just said you could be a part of it and that you would be filmed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that there'd be multiple robotic cameras in there, as well as cameramen and women that would come in and interview. So you had to sign, a release, and of course they told me to sign that release, and I got put into that pod. So nobody knew, that I was undercover. It took them over 30 days before they started to figure it out.
How'd they start to figure it out?
Because there were two other undercovers in there with me, and I didn't even know they were undercover. So there were 2 other undercovers with me, and one of them
must
wasn't
have been not
actually.
as good as you, because you kept your cover and they didn't.
I kept my cover, and everybody else did too. But she almost got us all busted out, Cherie, and we tease her to this day. But it wasn't funny when we were in there. She just had a big mouth. She talked too much, and she was a security
She was the
guard.
drama queen, huh?
Yeah, she was a correctional officer on the outside.
Oh, she wasn't even a prisoner.
Right, who had just, kind of gave up her job maybe 9 months before that because she was figuring like, I can't do this anymore. So she went in to see what it was like on the other side as well, but she talked too much, and she kind of made them wonder if she was a snitch or if anything like that. And then because she kept trying to get close to me, they kind of put 2 and 2 together.
So did they pay you for this terrible experience? I mean, did you get any compensation monetarily or any other?
I did.
That's good. That kind of helped motivate you, because at first they wanted 6 to 9 months. Man, they'd have to give me a lot of money. So
you and me both. And I'm still in therapy over that, by the way. And they provided me with therapy for only a year afterwards. I'm like, that's a lifetime of therapy that you need.
Yeah, some things are not worth the money, actually. But what did you learn from the experience? I mean, what are you gleaning out of this? Where's the wisdom?
I'm so glad you asked that, because this is something everybody needs to hear, especially caregivers and those who are contemplating becoming a caregiver. I learned that there are 3 different types of people who go to jail and prison, and that is one who is a person who has completely done the crime, but they get in, they learn from their mistakes, they are released, they come back into society, they become productive members of society, and they never go back and do this again.
What percentage is that?
It's about 30 to 40%. It's higher than you think.
Wow.
It's a lot higher than you think. And then you have those who are innocent, who were absolutely falsely accused and really did not do it. I know you hear everybody say, I didn't do it.
Yeah, nobody did it.
Yeah,
what percentage is that?
Honestly, it's a low percentage, but it does exist. And I actually met 2 people while I was in out of 61 people who were very innocent and were exonerated after the show was over.
Well, you
So 2
heard
out
their
of
story,
61.
but everyone has a story. Why did you think they were innocent and the others with their bogus stories were not?
I really didn't know, to be honest with you. I didn't know if they were innocent or not. I just know that afterwards, when they went to court, they were exonerated. It was
Mm,
documented. I saw it with my own two eyes.
I
I
see.
kind of felt something when I was in there.
Yeah.
Some of them are so
Sincerity.
good.
Yeah.
Some of them are so good you wouldn't know. You just wouldn't know. And that
Yeah.
leads me to the last person that I learned about. I learned that there are absolute criminals inside that need to be locked away and
Mm.
protected from us, the society.
Throw away the key.
They never need to come back out again, and they don't need to get more than any other chances. They just need to make jail and prison life their culture, their home.
Do you believe in capital punishment for people like that?
I believe everybody has to pay the price for whatever they do. They need to do the time. I do not believe that people should be over sentenced
Hmm.
for something. I mean, no offense, but let's take, for example, our situations. Your son,
Hmm.
grandson, was involved in a murder, correct? And
Manslaughter,
he
yeah.
got manslaughter, and he got 10 to 15 years.
Right. Is that all the
That's it.
life is worth these days? A
That's it. My
15 a
daughter,
15-year-old boy who was killed, yeah.
it used to be
That's
people would get life over that, but they got
right,
10
right.
to 15 years, okay? My daughter was involved in an armed robbery. She did not have any weapon at all, and no one was hurt. And a Louis Vuitton fake purse was
Hmm.
the gift that they got.
And first
And
offense.
she got a first offense. And she got 10 years mandatory minimum. 10 to 15 from your side
Yeah,
means he might be able to get out on good behavior. Hers
right.
was she was supposed to go all the way to the bitter end,
Yeah. A lot of
but she didn't.
inconsistency and subjectiveness in the criminal justice system.
Right.
Interesting. So why'd you start the organization and, the movement Parents with Incarcerated Children?
I started it because I started it out of my own pain. I needed a place to go. I couldn't find any place to go. I had no support group, so I decided to do it for myself. And then I felt, why should I be greedy? I should invite others to be a part of
And
this
how
because it's
hard
not
was
just
it to
about me.
find people? I mean, did they flock? Was it hard to find members?
There were more secretive members than you could ever imagine. More people DM'd me than they would ever like or go comment on the pages.
Uh-huh.
I think it's more people in secret still to this day, and my job is to eventually get them to come out into the open. But I've got to work with society first
Sure.
to bring about awareness so that we can restore the empathy on this subject.
It's a coming out of the closet experience. So
Absolutely.
what should families know who are going through incarceration with a loved one? Because I'm sure a lot of people don't think about it until it happens. Kind of like caregiving, you don't think about it till it happens, and now it's too late. So because it could happen to anybody, right? Your daughter was a straight A student, almost a genius, graduating early and all that stuff. You were one of the most unlikely persons that this could happen to, and there it happened. So it's nice that every parent should have in the back of their mind, anything is possible. No guarantees, no promises. So what advice could you give them?
The first thing I would tell a person, a parent in particular, or even a caregiver with someone who's incarcerated, patience, little butterfly, patience. Patience, 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 patience.
That's
Find
called long suffering, I think, is one of the gifts of long suffering.
right, they say, oh yeah, you're so right. It does feel like long suffering sometimes. But I would say, be patient with yourself first and foremost and allow yourself to feel. Allow yourself to experience your emotions that you're going through and then find quickly a way for you to enjoy your healing. We're not going to focus in on the person at first. The advice I give is focus in on you first. Rebuild you, restore you until you get to a point where you can then turn around and help your loved one. Sometimes you don't have a lot of time to do that. Hence the reason why you need to find my organization and start following it, because you can
Yeah.
get through things a lot faster than it took me.
Listen, we're going to take another break. Got to pay the bills around here. So we'll be right back. Don't go away.
Our featured speaker is a best-selling author who has written numerous books and articles. He's a speaker, life coach, and host of Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver radio program. He frequently appears on television and radio shows all across the country and has even shared the stage with Suzanne Summers at Harvard. But his most important role is caregiver to his beautiful wife Charlene for over 22 years. Please welcome Mr. Dave Nasani!
I want to share with you a love story. In a couple of weeks, my wife and I will be celebrating 44 years of being together. My wife Charlene and I had a fairy tale storybook romance, courtship, and marriage for the first 21 years of our lives together. One day, out of nowhere, my wife has a headache, the headache of her life. She suffered a massive stroke, and it left her severely speech impaired and paralyzed on the right side. And in that moment, our world turned upside down. I gotta tell you, the next 2 years was like a living hell. I just didn't know what to do. I felt guilty most of the time. I became a caregiver. I didn't even know what a caregiver was. I was experiencing the same problems that other caregivers experience.
If you don't take care of you, I can't take care of her.
Well, that's why I wrote the book. Now I can teach other caregivers. I'm living proof that you can thrive as a caregiver. My wife and I travel now all over the world sharing our story. One day, life is going to call upon you to be the captain of your boat. Heck, you might be saving your own life. Thank you.
And we're back with MonaLisa Johnson. And we're talking about incarceration, parents of incarcerated children. She started a group because one didn't exist, and now she's got more parents than she can handle. And I'm Dave Nasani. This is the Caregiver Dave Show. So let's see. You were telling about what families should go through, and what about those of us who have never experienced it? What does the word empathy mean to you? Because you were judged a little, weren't you, when they found out that your daughter was in jail? You were starting to feel the judgment, right?
I was. I think that the best way to explain how other people should feel about this is realize this. At one point or another, I am more than sure you made a mistake, right? I am more than sure, right. I'm sure that you made a mistake in this life and you hoped for another chance. Maybe your mistake was so bad that even you should have been in jail, right?
Yeah.
Maybe even served some time. But unfortunately, the difference between you and maybe my daughter or your grandson or the people listening we're referring to is that they just didn't get caught.
Right.
That's the difference. And with that being the difference, just remember some of the things you went through as a younger person. Remember some of the decisions that you made and try to find it in your heart to have empathy towards those who have done wrong. Now, I am not saying I condone crime. I am not asking you to say, oh, I support a child molester or I support, a stone cold murderer who, has been accused of murder and then been convicted of murder and has been in and out because they've murdered 10 people. I'm not saying that. I'm saying let's look at the balance of it and let's realize that there are people who deserve another chance. There are people there who, need to be looked at as a productive citizen back into society. They are not outcasts. They are U.S. citizens just like you and I.
Right. Well, they brought this woman caught in the very act of adultery, but strangely enough, they didn't have the man, just the woman. And they threw them at Jesus' feet. He says, what should I do? What should we do with this woman? And he started drawing in the sand. He says, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. And every one of them walked away because every one of them, some people think that Jesus was writing the names of the prostitutes that they all slept with one by one. And so that's somebody's opinion. But we have a habit of creating unpardonable sins, whether it be divorce or homosexuality or what about the other sins like most of us are guilty of, like gluttony or lying or gossip? What's the difference? So I agree. So empathy is your answer. Just put yourself in the other person's shoes, or the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, rebuilding the family unit seems to be high on your list of to-dos. Why is that? What's so
That's the other part. I mean,
important
first
about the family unit? Because families seem to
right,
be breaking apart these days, especially in the black
absolutely,
community, and nobody wants to
absolutely.
admit it.
No, in all communities now, but more so, like
Yep.
you said, in the black community. But now it's affecting all of us. And the reason why it's affecting all of us is because we're moving away from empathy. We're moving away from, caring about one another,
There's that word again.
about being our brother's keeper, our sister's keeper. We're moving away from that. And therefore, our families are doing exactly what the Word of God said. And it said in the end times, fathers would turn against sons. Sons would turn against fathers, mothers against daughters, daughters against mothers. And there's a reason for that, because we've lost our center and our balance, where we need to find our God. And we also need to care about one another. So as we rebuild the family unit, for me, what I think about and what I try to share with people and encourage people to see is that we first must start on the inside. You can't worry about Billy Bob down the street or the people across the street until you get what's right in your own home. So let's start
Yeah.
working on rebuilding our own family units.
Yeah. How's your daughter doing today? She's been
She's doing
out 2 years, right?
extremely, yeah, she's 2 years. She's doing extremely good and extremely bad all at the exact same time. Isn't that great?
Yeah, that's great.
She just graduated college. It's only been
Well,
five
that's
weeks,
good. There's good
right?
news and bad news.
Right? She's doing extremely well, where she's found her creative talents and her gifts and abilities.
That's
She's a
good.
phenomenal artist. She's a special
That's
effect
great.
makeup artist. And she doesn't want to work for me, the production company that
Yeah.
created all of this. But she doesn't
Yeah.
want to work for me. She's got bigger, better things to do, and it's okay. And at the same time, she's still struggling from, social anxiety. She's still struggling from being back in the free world and not knowing how to live outside of a day-to-day schedule and allowing herself to be free. She's also, struggling from self-identification. They told her who she was for 6
Yeah.
years.
And
They
that
almost made her
goes into
believe
your
she was
subconscious. It's
nobody.
hard to get it out. Got to
Absolutely.
replace it.
So she's rebuilding her confidence on a
Is she
day-to-day
getting therapy?
basis. She was in the beginning. Now it looks like Mama Mona is the therapist. So, and
Mama
God,
Mona?
Mama Mona. That's an Italian in me, huh? That's a
Does
Mama
she let
Mona.
you be her therapist?
She does. I mean, she knows that
Yeah, but we
I have
listen to
the best.
strangers more than we listen to our loved ones. She should find somebody who's a stranger who's saying the same thing that you're saying, but, it will mean more because it's a stranger,
And
right?
that's a touchy subject with her, but you're
Yeah.
100% right. That's a touchy subject because most people who come out automatically assume and say that there's no need for me to go to a psychiatrist or anything like that, because if I do, it's going to be just like when I was on the inside. They're just going to try to give me pills and say that I'm crazy. They're not going to try to really hear me or
Yeah.
help me. So they get engrafted with that mental process.
Yeah, God's got to be a part of the healing process. How close is she to God these days?
Not to.
Well, then there's room for improvement,
Absolutely.
and I'm sure that's your prayer, praying that she gets closer to God, because God is the healer.
Absolutely. But
He,
people have to make, that's another thing
yeah,
another piece of advice I give to
yeah.
parents.
Drugs and
We,
God, you can't want it more than they do.
that too. We may raise our children right, and as they get older, they may stray, but they will come back. But it's
Yep,
up to them to make the decision to
yep,
come back. We can't beat our children over the head with it because they will only run.
yep. So what's your latest project now? What are you doing now?
Oh, here's the happy part. I
Hmm.
actually decided that A&E didn't do a good enough job for me. They sensationalized yet again the
Yep.
concept of going to jail and prison, and that pissed me off
Mm,
to the point where I said to myself, I got to do something about this. So I thought, okay, you own a production company, you have a recording studio, you have a sound stage, you have cameramen, you have a video suite. Why don't you create your own show? So I
hello.
attempted to do it, and I tried to cast everybody else as the host. I tried my
Uh-huh.
best. And that didn't quite work. Nobody liked the show. Nobody was interested in it until somebody said, Mona, you should be the host. It makes no sense. You may be a
Yeah.
producer and you may have been on the back side of the camera, but now it's time for you to come to the front. I did
Yeah, I
it.
agree. I agree.
I was
You were
so shocked.
irreplaceable. Yes. Nobody
I was
sent you
so
that
shocked.
memo,
No,
huh?
I said, man, I was shocked to see myself on television, and it was kind of strange. So I created this show called Prisoner of Hope, and this show is designed to be the light and to be the positive force out there. We call it prison adjacent programming, which
Uh,
means that we are looking at the families of incarceration and looking at their problems, their challenges, and then we're trying to bring healing and solutions to them.
yeah. Well, listen, believe it or not, we've run out of time. That was one fast hour. How can we contact you, find out more about Prisoner of Hope or whatever?
Well, you can follow me on everything, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, MonaLisa Johnson. If you look me up, you will find me. From
You're on
there, it'll
YouTube
lead you
also.
on
YouTube.
YouTube as well.
Yeah.
You can also, it'll lead you to our organization, Parents with Incarcerated Children, who, you can connect to through all of my pages.
Yeah.
Prisoner of Hope, the show is out. It's in pilot format. It's brand new. It's only been like maybe 90 days. It's out in pilot format, and it's on a spaceforcreators.com, a
Awesome.
spaceforcreators.com. And
That's great.
we need to prove by getting more people to watch it,
Mm.
that people want to see this prison adjacent programming, more positive programming. And then
Yeah.
they'll fund the full series. That's kind of where
Well,
we are.
God has his hand on you, and if he wants it, he's going to do it. And no weapon formed against it will prosper. And so he opens doors no man can close, closes doors no man can open. So I am so happy for you, and I'm so glad you agreed to be on the show. Thank you
Thank you.
so much. So grateful that I met you.
You're
And
welcome, Preacher Dave.
hey, it takes one to know one. So thank you again. God
Thank
bless
you.
you,
God
and
bless you.
we'll see you next time.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Take care, everybody.
You too.
Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again. Keep breathing, take it in and let it out. Keep breathing, it's gonna be okay. Believe a power greater than what you are going through. When you don't know what to do,